Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Honourable Chief Secretary Orville London addresses the media.
The budget for fiscal 2016 will be presented by the Secretary of Finance, Assemblyman Joel Jack, at 10 a.m. on Monday, the 22nd of June. Our debate on the budget would start at 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 25th of June. As you're aware, under the Tobago House of Assembly Act, the Tobago House of Assembly must present to the Minister of Finance by the 30th of June its revenue and expenditure for the upcoming fiscal year, so that the debate has to be completed, the decisions taken, so that the appropriate information could be relayed to the Minister of Finance. After that, we go into the negotiation phase. Of course, this is a very peculiar situation where we have an election coming up, and we don't know when the budget is going to be presented. But we will do what we have to do, and of course, we will start our discussions with the Minister of Finance until that can be arranged. One of the issues, of course, which we still have not been able to treat with and to get agreement from the ministry or the government is to do away with this line item budgeting and to really have a block allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly. Because in effect, what happens is that you make your request based on the line items, and then of course, in most cases, especially under the development vote, in very few instances is the money that is finally allocated sufficient to do any of the activities for which it was requested. So what you have to end up doing is doing environments and so on, so as to pool monies from a number of differing heads, and so that you'll be able to have enough money to do the work in one particular area. And we have been advocating, even before my time, it has been advocated that the thing to do is to just provide the Tobago House of Assembly with the monies en bloc, and then you'll be able to assign or allocate the funding as you consider adequate, without going through this very time-consuming and laborious process of taking a little from here and a little from there, so that you can have enough funding to complete the activities in a particular area. But the Secretary of Finance should be here next week, and he would go into the situation in greater detail as to what we can expect in the budget. And while we're on the subject of the budget, I just want to say a couple of things about the appropriation bill for fiscal 2015. As you're aware, earlier this month, the Minister of Finance would have gone to the House and laid and had it approved, I should say late last month, the appropriation bill. I just want to draw your attention to maybe 2 or 3 areas which are of interest to us as Tobagonians and of interest to the Tobago House of Assembly. The Tobago House of Assembly was allocated an increase of $110 million. But I want to make it very clear that this was not an increase that will in any way make any difference to the funding available to the Tobago House of Assembly. All of us know that at this point in time, there are arrears to public servants, to teachers, to daily rated workers, to most state employees. And this money here is money that is allocated for the arrears that is owed as we speak to these various sectors. In effect, the request from the Tobago House of Assembly was in the vicinity of $147 million, so that we're $37 million short. But I want to give all of these workers the assurance that The payments will be a priority, and therefore we will have to via money from other areas, but we will ensure that the workers in Tobago are not in any way disadvantaged. Although, as I said, the funding requested was not advanced. It was $37 million short based on our calculations. I want to point to two other areas that are of interest. Now, when one looks at the areas where funding was requested and funding was approved, under Head 61, under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, I want to read this because it's of interest. Cabinet agreed to the expansion of the Community-Based Environmental Protection and Enhancement Program through the engagement of 340 additional contractors for a period of 1 year, commencing in fiscal 2015 at a cost of $420.2 million. So at the start of the season, they agreed to putting on 340 additional contractors. I'm not speaking about workers. These are individuals who can contract people. This increase of $75 million to the 2015 allocation will enable the company to engage an additional 53 contractors. So in addition to the 340, they're going to take on an additional 53, and that will mean that the total expenditure is $495 million. Now, what is the situation in the case of the Tobago House of Assembly? We would have requested, I think, $50 million. We received $8 million for CPEP in Tobago. And of that 8, and of course, in this particular reallocation, Tobago is not factored in. And I want people to understand how we operate and how we ensure that the people in CPEP and the people in URP get paid. Because CPEP is costing the Tobago House of Assembly somewhere in the vicinity of $50 million to pay wages and, of course, to provide goods and services. In the case of URP, you're talking about somewhere in the vicinity of $70 million. We would have received, I think, $17 or $18 million. And it is because we are able to plan ahead and we are able to ensure that when the year starts, we save money from the previous year so that we can meet these commitments while these people are still working. Because the central government does not provide for them, even if we make the request. And in this situation, as I indicated, they were prepared to give. They gave 420, they gave 75 more. And in the same situation, the Tobago House of Assembly does not benefit, and the people of Tobago do not benefit from this. So the total allocation to CPEP at the national level is $495 million. Tobago's share of that is $8 billion. You can do the arithmetic. But on the other hand, the Ministry of Tobago Development gets $4.675 million, and listen to what is, to facilitate temporary employment of staff over the period May 2015 to September 2015. Now, I do not begrudge anybody who gets work. And I'm saying that if you offered work, by all means, take it. But I just want you to understand the intent. Because here you have not just 3 months or 4 months before the end of the fiscal year, but 2 months before the election, you're providing funding for temporary employment, which means, of course, that you're employing people for a limited period with no guarantee that this is going to be sustainable. And I'm saying that even for this limited period, it's better than nothing. But when things like that happen, one must be tempted to believe that there is some degree of electioneering about it. Because why would you give that sum of money for temporary employment 2 months before an election? And I'm saying to people that they have to accept that if jobs are on offer, by all means take them. But I don't think that people should allow this to influence their decision at the end of the day, because we have to see it for what it is, a blatant attempt at electioneering. So this is the present situation with respect to the appropriation bill. I want to say a little about the bill dealing with squatting on state land. And I want to put it in a particular perspective. In Tobago, for two perspectives. One, because I think of the way in which Tobagonians treat with land and treat with respect for the law. Squatting is not the challenge that it is in some parts, as in some parts of Trinidad. Our land management unit tries as far as possible to curtail squatting on state lands. We don't succeed all the time, but I don't think the situation is out of hand. And therefore, you actually had a bill, and I want us to understand and ask the question why, which accepted the fact that if people are squatting on a piece of land for an extended period, it is very difficult to do anything else but to regularize them. And therefore, under the parent bill, persons who were squatting on lands before 1998 had a way forward to be able to get some degree of comfort and eventual regularization. And I don't think there's anybody who had any problem with that. But again, look at the timing. 2 months before an election is due, or just an election is due, and no, you bring a bill that regularizes tens of thousands of squatters, and to date, the numbers are not known. And my problem is the signals that you send to people. Because if you take the Tobago situation, for example, we have told young people, if you want to get land, get involved in the home ownership program. And maybe over a period of 4 or 5 years, you'll save enough money to buy land. But while you're doing that, you're signaling that somebody was prepared to ignore all of that. And someone who was prepared to go onto land that they knew was not theirs, and to squat, to build a house, that person is being rewarded with the land, with the rights. And I understand, if I read if I read the bill properly, that you're even going to get some concessions where utilities are concerned. So you're rewarding people for breaking the law, and of course leaving those who are law-abiding with a situation where they have to make the concessions necessary in order to achieve their objectives. But I also want us to understand that it is not just land. The land has worth. 5,000 square feet of land, which I think is what they said is the maximum, ranges between $250,000 to maybe $500,000. That's the kind of cost. Land is $50, $100 a square foot. And it means that is what you're gifting people for breaking the law. And I find it difficult to come to terms with that, especially the timing. Now, in Tobago, when you look at the bill, the parent bill, and the amendment, there are 3 areas in Tobago which are included among the areas where this applies. And those areas are Castara, Louis-d'Or, and Buku. And one of the things that it's a continuation of the issues which you have raised, that here you have a situation where, according to the Tobago House of Assembly Act, state land is placed under the ambit of the Tobago House of Assembly and right of the state. And you are putting into effect laws which affect land under the auspices of the Tobago House of Assembly without any information and without any consultation. And that, again, is just indicative of the way things are. Fortunately for us, and I think the people of Tobago should be comforted, because of the way in which we have been monitoring these our state lands, there is none or minimal squatting on these lands in the last 2 or 3 years. So that I don't think there are very many people who will have benefited from this particular initiative. But I think that the intent is something about which we're very concerned. And I have given instructions to the State Land Committee that they should be even more rigorous in their patrolling so as to ensure that we don't have any challenges coming out of this particular act. I want to take the opportunity to compliment Nurse Denise Lashley Agard. You may or may not be aware, but the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association celebrated its 83rd anniversary in the week starting the 13th of May. And at the end of that, Nurse Agard, who is Tobago nurse, was named Trinidad and Tobago Nurse of the Year. And we got to put that in context, because this comes after Nurse Karen Frank of the Oncology Unit. She was the Trinidad and Tobago Nurse of the Year in 2014, and she also went on to be nominated as the Caribbean Nurse of the Year at the 29th Caribbean Nurses Association Conference in St. Lucia. In other words, we do and we should comment and so on when negative things come out of the health sector. But I think we should also compliment our health sector and individuals in the health sector who do us proud. And I think that Nurse Agard in 2015 and Nurse Frank in 2014 should be highly commended because they are good people in the health sector, and there are good things that are happening in the health sector. Sometimes things happen that are unfortunate, but that should not make one condemn the entire sector or condemn most of the things that are happening in this sector, because there are good things and good people there. And while we're in the health sector, I just want to indicate that there'll be a cancer conference at the Magdalena an international cancer conference from this Friday, a 3-day conference. A number of experts from the United States and other parts of the world will be at the conference, where they'll be discussing. It's a highly technical conference where they'll be discussing some of the latest developments in cancer treatment. And it comes at the end of Cancer Survivors Week. And I think that all of us should take the opportunity to examine our lifestyles and to ensure that we look at those things that are likely to increase or risk of cancer. Things like smoking, excessive drinking, diet. All of these, the medical evidence seems to indicate that all of these do in fact contribute. And of course, regular testing. The last thing I want to speak to is the situation at Scarborough Roman Catholic Primary School. I think you're aware that there are some concerns, and I want to put this in perspective, just concerns, as to whether there is asbestos in the ceiling. There is no proof, there is no indication, but I think as a responsible division and a responsible administration at the school, they have taken the relevant precautions, and they have evacuated the area, and Kariri is going to do a test until such time between the division and the school. They will be making arrangements for the students to be relocated. I am not aware of what the details are, but basically we taken into consideration, based on the information that I got from the secretary, that the safety of the staff and students must come first. And then, of course, we don't want to overreact, but we got to place emphasis on the safety. And until such time as Kariri comes up with an opinion or an indication as to what the situation is, we are hoping that it is not, because based on when that school was built and when it was repaired, the odds are that it is not. But one has to operate on the side of caution, and I support the division and the administration for making sure that even though there is some inconvenience, that the safety of the staff and students remains paramount, and that we do not take any risk until we are certain as to what the true situation is.
I'm hoping that the Tobago House of Assembly attempts to build over the Scarborough RC School. I know at PTA meetings that I attend, everyone is wondering how soon will students be relocated?
Right, there are two issues here. And, and sometimes we tend not to empathize with the Tobago House of Assembly with respect to the challenges that we face. All the groundwork has been done. We've had discussions with the PTA, well, not the PTA, the board, because the Catholic school is run by a board. The PTA was involved. The design has been agreed upon. The location has been identified. The question is, of course, the cost and how the money is going to be funded. But I think you remember me speaking to that I think we've got maybe $2 million or something like that, when the cost is somewhere in the vicinity of $40 million. But what we try to do every year, and that's the point we're saying, is that if you have 10 projects and you get 10% in each of them, then you put all 10 of them together and you do one. The Scarborough RC School is going to be one of the priorities. So whether the funding is adequate or not, work will start on the Scarborough RC School. But we could not have done it before because there were ongoing projects which we had to complete. Now that we've completed most of them, that then we're in a position to prioritize new projects. And that is going to be one of the new projects, because we recognize that it just cannot hold out any longer. But it's not because of lack of intent or will on our part. It was lack of capacity because of the funding shortfall. And I want to reiterate that because we're able to manage our development thrust in a particular way, sometimes people don't appreciate how challenging it is when you don't have funding to complete any project at all based on your allocation. And therefore, you got to make the hard decisions. You got to say, well, okay, I have to forego this, forego this, forego that, forego that, and concentrate on this one. Scarborough RC is going to be one of the main priorities, and therefore I could say with confidence that work will start on the school in the upcoming fiscal year.
With respect to the 102 million owing to the Tobago House of Assembly, has the THA gotten that as yet?
No, and we have not got an explanation, because you see, there is a question of the set-off, and because the ministry has not explained, there is a disconnect with us where the set-off is concerned. Because what the Division of Finance is telling me is that when you make your request in the third and fourth quarters, you project a set-off. So when you ask for funding, you actually ask for funding taking into consideration your set-off. So the people who are saying that this is a set-off are in fact saying that there should be another set-off, because the request coming out of the Division of Finance, based on what they've told me, already factored in a set-off. And the $102 million was $102 million which they calculated would have been monies due to the Tobago House of Assembly, taking into consideration that they were already factored in the set-off. No, and not only that we have not got the funding, but we have not got any official, well, I wouldn't call it official, any communication from the minister or the ministry officials. I have heard the ministers making some statements, but he's talking about maybe. There are no figures to support it. But the answer to your question is no. But I think maybe more importantly to me, that we are not getting, even an explanation.
For want of a better description, the running the race against time with which the government has been trying to hustle through the legislation. Well, we have also been told that by the 17th, the parliament will be dissolved, prorogued. And you mentioned one bill which is of concern to the Assembly, which is the state lands regularization. Are there any other bills that the Assembly has concerns about as the government attempts to run the race against time? One, and two, I'd like to specifically find out about this gambling, gaming bill thing. Mm-hmm. Because I know that in the past the Assembly did raise some concerns about what was happening with the particularly the casino and gambling sector in Tobago. So there's a two-part of the question. Are you in any position to provide a response?
Yes, that was one bill over which we had some concern. Well, not some concern, a lot of concern. In fact, they did have. We did have a meeting with them where I would have shared what our concerns were. We also had a representative on the committee who would have been consistently voicing our concerns. Now, I have not seen the bill in detail, but basically some of our concerns were not addressed. And I would expect that when the bill comes to the House, when the bill is debated in detail, that our concerns would be addressed through our lone representative in the House. So that is one bill where we have some serious concerns. And I think basically the major issue with us is the ventilation, so that people from all sectors, not just the Assembly, Tobagonians, regardless of their political affiliation, Tobagonians can voice their opinion on those areas in the bill which they consider of interest and of concern to them. The same thing with the squatters bill. If the runoff bill comes to the Parliament, as it might, you also want to have some idea as to that. And there's one other bill, I can't remember it offhand, I should remember it before the end of the day. But the point about it, sir, is the question of how do you operate a parliamentary democracy? And a parliamentary democracy is about involvement, it is about participation. And one cannot participate except one has the information, has enough time to inculcate, to digest, to research, and then to comment. And I think that what is going on here is an insult to us as the residents of Tobago and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and it is an attack on the democracy. And even when you relate it to the other actions, I mean, I have been in politics for quite some time, and I mean, politicians try to maintain themselves in office, but I have never seen, such blatant and brazen politicking as I have seen from this government at this time.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending June 13th, 2015.